Well, it wasn't always pretty, especially those last two games, but the Utah Utes are 10-2 on the season. Were they able to beat the Kansas Jayhawks today? We're going to tell you on Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Huge shout out to our everydayers, and also a huge shout out to all of you who have made the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Coming to you after the Utah Utes are officially 10-2. You'll love to see it. Let's not forget, this was a 5-7 team a year ago that somehow did manage to miss a bowl game despite going into that year being the Big 12's favorite to win the title game. And we know why: injuries chief among them came rising. But fast forward a year later, and this team was able to win 10 games. Yes, they're probably not going to get in the Big 12 title game. We can talk in the college football playoff. We could talk about like, hey, here's how all the cards would have to fall in order for those things to happen. But at the end of the day, like, let's just enjoy the fact that this team is a 10-win team. I think it's the 9th time they said under Kyle Whittingham now, or maybe it was 8th, but I think it was 9th. The 9th time under Kyle Whittingham that's been the case. And it is hard to win 10 college football games. Yes, it was not always pretty down the stretch, right? Especially these last couple games. There was that incredible display of dominance by the Utes where they had that stretch of after the Tech game, you dominate West Virginia, Arizona State. You lose to BYU very close, and then you dominate Colorado, Cincinnati, even Baylor in a lot of ways. And yeah, the Kansas State and Kansas wins were in question for a lot of it, and for different reasons, ugly, but in both of them, you found a way to get it done. And I mean, chiefly today for Utah comes down to the turnovers in the red zone they were able to force against Kansas and Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels had a really nice career for Kansas. He's a good quarterback. I like his game, but man, will he not want to remember his final outing that he ever had. The Utah defense held him just to 10 of 27 passing, held him to 187 yards and 3 interceptions in this game too. And some of those ones in the red zone were the biggest one. How about Jackson Benny? That was just a bad play by Daniels. He just threw it up, and Daniels was there. Elijah Davis turned the game on its head. It's 17-14 Utah, and the 95-97, whatever it was, pick six. I mean, that was everything for this Utah team here. So the huge key stops in the red zone, because this Utah team, their run defense is bad right now. There's no other way to put it. They are getting just absolutely torched on the ground. It's a combination of things. I honestly might say the biggest actually might be the absence of John Henry Daly, because that's just the thing I look at and I'm like, well, all of these pieces were here for most of the year. In fact, the defensive tackle group is actually healthier right now than they've been in some of the other games on the season. So why is this all coming undone? And I think part of it is John Henry Daly's just presence. I mean, this is one of the best guys in tackles for losses in the nation, and he's not there anymore. So I think you see some of the plays that he was able to make there. There are a lot of gaps that are widened when you run at his side. You got a guy in Cash Dillon who I like and made some nice plays today, but he's young, and you could see that youth and inexperience at times as well too. So you get defensive tackles that Utah lost their projected starting defensive tackles coming in this year, Samote Papa and Keanu Tanuvasa. And they clearly looked like for most of the year that those guys, the other guys who were in there, they were best probably utilized as backups. They did their job. They tried their best in there, but there were times quite frequently where they would get blown out of the ball and they wouldn't be able to control the gap. You know, some of the linebacker stuff for Utah. Jonathan Hall still learning the position, even though I thought he had some nice moments throughout the year. Trey Reynolds as well, learning the position. So there's a lot. And, you know, even though Teo Johnson made some nice plays today, like that one pass breakup in the end zone to save a touchdown. I mean, how big was that one? But like, he's not the greatest tackler, right? So there's a lot wrong with this Utah run defense. I'd still probably say chief among them being the lack of a dominant defensive tackle on the interior. But either way, this Utah team found a way to win. That's what matters. I mean, if you give up and 290 rushing yards, you know, back-to-back weeks now, they've given up 290 more or more rushing yards too. You're going to lose. You should probably lose a lot of games, but Utah was able to run for 161 here. Wayshawn Parker, another big day on the ground, 12 carries, 95 yards. How about 7.9 yards per carry? So Wayshawn's yardage on the season, I want to check and see if his stats were put final in ESPN. I believe so. We'll see. He's actually at 836. I don't know if they uploaded the overall ones yet, but he's going to he'll end the year having averaged like 7 yards per carry. Like, what a season for Wayshawn Parker. And obviously a huge reason for that is the dominance of this Utah offensive line that, you know, throughout the game had to slowly but surely wear out a Kansas team, because Utah's offense struggled in this one. Credit Kansas. They came ready to roll early, packed the box, were able to stop the run, some key spots. And the Utah passing offense has been a roller coaster that more times on the season has featured more drops on that roller coaster than it has the high moments. But there were some high moments today too. Credit this team for staying in and battling, and also give a lot of credit to Jason Beck for going, okay, this passing attack is limited. Whether it being, Devon Dampier, we've heard he's not healthy. He hasn't been as accurate, as I think we thought he'd be, although he's made some nice plays and throws on the season. I look at the pass catching unit and I say those guys aren't always separating. So how can you merge those things together? Because there's frequent plays on the year where it's like, oh, what was the issue with this one? Well, on this play, no one was open. Well, on this play, it was just a miss by Dampier. Like, that's been an issue all year. So how do you come together with that? Well, Utah's kind of been utilizing these jump passes or kind of the fake runs and then throw it at the last minute on the season in spots, and it's worked well. And they used a heavy dose of them tonight. It was a great fake early on, the one they threw to JJ Buchanan. How about it? What a year for the true freshman, by the way. A tight end that I remember when Utah committed him, I thought it'd be like a fun safety, a special teamer this year. And then over time, it'd probably be used more as a safety and has become mostly just a receiving tight end for this team, but has been incredibly fun to watch too. And he ended up making a few plays today. Obviously, the touchdown we just mentioned. And then how about Larry Simmons? This was his best game as a Utah Ute, 3 catches, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's a bummer. It took almost a whole season for Utah to figure out how to get him incorporated in this offense effectively, but showed up when it mattered most. They got him the same thing where they faked the run late in this game to put it away. And there was Larry Simmons leaking out for the big grab too. So love the plays that he made. Dampier, while we said not his greatest day accuracy wise, still made a lot of plays for this Utah team, and the Utah passing attack was able to come through. And I know, yeah, it was like 15 for 25, so 60% completion. That's not terrible. Yeah, but there were just a lot of misses and Kyle Whittingham continues to love going for it on 4th down. Some of them I understood. Some of them, but almost all of them, I'm like, is this really the best option to do here? And it didn't always work out in Utah's favor. It didn't today. They were over 2 there, but didn't end up costing them because the defense came up with those timely turnovers that we mentioned too. And just so impressed with this secondary. I know like a couple times a game, they'll get beat, right? But what Blake Cotton, Smith Snowden, Elijah Davis, how great was his pick 6 once again, what those guys are asked to do is so much. Just, hey, here's go on an island out here. We're going to, Utah like sends the farm. They'll bring everything. And then basically, hey, you're on your own out there. So if you get beat, you're giving up a touchdown. Most college teams in the country never ask that of their secondaries, but Morgan Scalley and Utah clearly feel confident in the group that they have. Blake Cotton saved another touchdown this game with a huge key pass batted away too. So like Jalen Daniels wasn't great in this game, but Utah was a large reason for that. The defense was really good. I love that Logan Fano, I don't know if you guys saw this on his X post. He had JHD written on his eye black for this game. So love that he was playing for John Henry Daly here, and Utah was able to create some pressure and havoc in some key spots too. Obviously not the same as if you had your guy out there, like with Jonathan Hall and Logan Fano getting home for the lone sack of the game on what was the final play of Jalen Daniels' career. But as we talked about too, this Utah team made plays when they needed to, got pressure when they needed to at times, like even the stuff that didn't quite get home, right? The Smith Snowden interception early. This Utah team was able to just make stuff happen. Also, shout out, mention the pressure. Logan Fano did end up with 3 QB hurries today. So a team win, a team effort for this Utah team, and they're 10-2. What do they need to have happen, and how else were they able to come away against this Kansas team with a win? We're going to tell you in one moment. This episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, really, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like a lot more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is genuinely what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $10. I actually saw tickets for today's game. We're going for very, very cheap. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals too, picking the section, and then Game Time picks the seats. You save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. The 10-2 Utah Utes. I won't get tired of saying it. I was thinking earlier before we hopped on, like I did those Big 12 squad shows. I brought up how I thought, Utah was going to bounce back. And I remember there was a time even like Vegas had us as a favorite in the Big 12, and everyone was kind of laughing at that. And look, like, are we going to make it to Arlington? Probably not. Like, it was really quick, a reminder of what needs to happen for Utah to reach the Big 12 championship game. So Utah did their part. They beat Kansas. Awesome. but we need a lot more. We actually need BYU to beat UCF. The only way we get in is a Utah BYU game, which is absolutely awesome, by the way, if that is the case. But yeah, BYU beat UCF. That's likely to happen. Arizona State beating Arizona, that'll be a good game. We'll see how that one shakes out. But that isn't even like the biggest one that Utah needs to go their way. And we'll find that one out tonight. That's a 9 p.m. kickoff. It is in Tempe, so that does bode well for Arizona State, that hopefully they can come away with the win, but easier said than done. But the biggest thing we need, it's funny that all we need are home teams to win and we're in, but one of those home teams is we need the West Virginia Mountaineers to somehow beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders. A reminder, Texas Tech, 5th best team in the country, 10-1 in Big 12 play. They beat us badly. We kept it close for a while, but the dam kind of broke late in that one and things got out of hand. Mountaineers have started to play a little bit better football as of late, right? Like they beat Houston not too long ago, but outside of that, you beat Colorado. Colorado's terrible. I mean, they lost to UCF 45-13. They lost to TCU 23-17, so played it closer. Lost to Arizona State last week 25-23. So a little closer on the road. Rich Rod's team's getting better as the seasons wore on. So there's still a world where Utah could squeeze into the Big 12 title game. That game tomorrow at noon. But gosh, it's just going to be hard for that Mountaineers team to beat a Texas Tech team that if they lose that game, they probably will not be in the college football playoff. Like if you lose to that Mountaineers team who is fighting for bowl eligibility, I think it is. I'm trying to remember what their record is now, but like who's just not in a good position, you're not getting in. So, I mean, they're 4-7. They're not even bowl eligible. So if you lose to that team this late in the year, that'll be enough to drop you. Like they won't make the playoff. So I do believe that Texas Tech is not going to be sleepwalking into this one. So we'll wait and see how all that plays out. Utes down there a little bit in the college football playoff rankings. Feels like they're on the outside looking in. I mean, maybe if Oklahoma could lose, we could really use, Ole Miss won, although they weren't really in our range anyways. If Miami were to falter, that wouldn't be bad. There's just a lot. And Miami's got Pitt, so that's possible too. There's a lot that Utah needs to have happen in order for them to get in, right? We need Auburn to beat Bama, the Iron Bowl. There's a lot of chaotic things. BYU, if it was BYU Tech, like if BYU got embarrassed, maybe they'd let Utah in. But I also think there'd be those people on the committee talking about how, hey, I know Utah's just behind BYU, but they have the same record and BYU did beat them head-to-head. So this committee's heard a lot about how they're not honoring head-to-head, having Notre Dame ahead of Miami when those two teams played. So that's what makes it very complex here to figure all out. But yeah, Utah probably not making it either way. But once again, that doesn't make it not a successful season. I started out this whole point bringing up how coming into the year, like people laughed at the idea of this Utah team being a Big 12 contender. They did not think this team would bounce back. And yes, they are clearly not the class of Tech. We'll see what happens if Utah could somehow get in the Big 12 title game and wouldn't see Tech, as we mentioned, but you still win a conference title potentially. But they're not as good as Tech, I don't think, Utah. And I said before, I think on a neutral side, Utah beats BYU, but BYU beat them head-to-head. Like, you got to give the Cougars credit for that, absolutely. And that's a really good BYU team, too. They proved me wrong. They proved a lot of people wrong this year. So Utah pretty clearly right now the third best team in the Big 12. And could very easily be the second best Big 12 team. So there's a lot that we could still look back on and go, wait a minute, this team was 5-7 last year, and they've made this much of a leap forward. And it's an incredible testament to this group, this team, and of course, Kyle Whittingham. Speaking of Kyle Whittingham, this might have been his final game as head coach of the Utah Utes. And what a career it's been for Whit if that is the case. I shouldn't say final game. Utah's obviously bowl eligible. I would expect him to play in that game. He has frequently said that he just wants to exit stage left and not give a farewell tour thing. I get that, but I also said, I think on the radio earlier this week, and I think I might have said on the show too, if I'm Utah, I'm making Kyle Whittingham announce the bowl game is going to be his final game, because I want to give Utah fans an opportunity to go down and support and watch Whit in what will be his final game on the sideline, because bowl games they've never meaned less than they do if you're not in the playoff today. Bowl game's still really cool, and that'd be awesome for Utah to go into whatever bowl game it might be, right? Holiday Bowl's been floated around out there. There's been Vegas Bowl, all kind of. If it was Vegas, that'd be awesome, because that's obviously a very short trip for Utah. But you want to do all you can to drive up bowl game attendance. Having it be Kyle Whittingham's last game coaching Utah football would be a pretty big deal. And I would love to see Utah be able to do that. I do think this was his last game. He was asked by the media, hey, was this your final game? And this is the quote that he gave to Josh Furlong of KSL.com, who posted this. Whittingham said, it takes some time to decompress and reflect on it, talk about the results of the season, and if he'll be back next year. And he said, hey, we still might have a game next week. Very true. So he said, so who knows? And so right now, it's not the time to really comment on that when asked about, was this your last game, or even think about it yet. But yeah, I mean, everyone knows that's out there, and we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm having a heck of time coaching this team. It's a fun year and not quite over yet. Got a little more football left. When he says a little more football left, I think he's talking about this season, the 1 to 2 games. I mean, somehow if you get into the Big 12 title game, maybe it's a few more games, which I would love to see this team be able to do that. But it's a tall mountain to climb, as we mentioned. But just once, like, Thanksgiving was yesterday. I don't know about y'all. I'm thankful for Kyle Whittingham and all he's done for Utah football, helping this team go from Mountain West to Pac-12 to Big 12 now most recently. It's been a lot of step ups for Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes. And I'm just glad I was along for the journey to see some of the Pac-12 titles this team did, to see, 10-2 in the Big 12. Yes, Utah, it didn't go great last year, but let's also not forget there were a lot of people questioning this Utah team succeeding in the Big 12. This conference is so physical and all this. Can a team from the Pac-12 come over and have success? And obviously the answer to that was yes. Heck, last year a Pac-12 team won it, by the way, and the team picked to finish dead last. So we kind of knew that was the case. But so impressed by this Utah team's resolve and ability on the year too. It's interesting they get to 10-2, but it's not like, Devon Dampier didn't get close to 3,000 yards passing this season too. Utah's defense was really good overall in the year, but pretty clearly showed some cracks in the armor, especially late. Like, this is not a great run defense. They clearly missed John Henry Daly, as we said, immensely too. But even if he was playing, I still think there'd be some run defense issues with this Utah team, because even when John Henry Daly was in the game, this Utah team still did get gashed against Kansas State. So just an incredible year for this Utah team, this Utah program. Kyle Whittingham said he thinks this is the best offensive line since he's been here, or maybe in the history of the program, whatever it was. He was right. Now that we can look back and reflect on it, he called his shot, and he was right. This group was dominant all season long. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, two of the best offensive linemen in the country. Fano might literally win the top offensive lineman award, and I think that would be well-deserved, absolutely. You talk about the guard play, Moka Fisi, Tongai brought it all year long, and Jaron Kump was really good too. Jaron Kump was the guy I had questions about coming into this season, and he stepped up. Like, whenever Jaron Kump would randomly make a negative play, because, you're offensive lineman, you never do it, I was always reminded, like last year so often, I felt like, there was a play there where I feel like a block should have been made by Kump and he wasn't able to make it. And now we fast forward this year, and I'm like, he's improved his game a lot. And I give these guys credit. Shout out to Jim Harding too. Yeah, the passing game wasn't always there for this Utah team. And shout out Ryan Davis, wasn't able to play this game or the last one, but what a year he had. Creed Whittemore made so many plays for this team down the stretch these last two games. Wish he would have played more on the year. It's a question for another day, but Dallin Bentley surprised everyone too. So many guys stepped up, including the coordinators. Morgan Scalley with one of his best defensive coordinating jobs on the year. We see kind of these last two weeks how honestly bad the run defense was, but I think in a lot of ways he helped cover that up. Jason Beck's offense helping get Utah out of some tough spots. Mentioned a couple of the big touchdown passes and plays that this Utah squad was able to make. So just coaches who maximize their guys, Devon Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, Bird Ficklin. I know he fumbled today, but what a year for Bird too. Dampier, the dynamic dual threat QB that he is. Yes, banged up, but still making plays and guiding this team to 10-2 in a large part. Wayshawn Parker being an absolute star at running back. So many guys to shout out, so many to mention. And this Utah team is just incredibly talented. And you saw that was a difference today too. One thing I'm always so impressed with Utah too is their red zone efficiency, the ability to finish drives. That's something this team does at a really high level. We saw Kansas really struggle with that today with some of the turnovers. And, the ability to make timely plays and create chaos is a testament to this Utah culture. Yes, there are times they beat themselves. There was that bad snap in the first quarter and another one that was almost a fumble, and Bird did fumble, but some of the really bad turnovers on Kansas today, it's just rare you see Utah have like that many types of mistakes that like a Jayhawks had in a game. And that's why Kansas in some ways did beat themselves in a couple key spots. Utah really doesn't do that. They'll do that a play or two. And sometimes that's all it takes to cost you a game. But Kansas did a lot today. Kansas did outgain Utah and still found a way to lose this one by 10, I might add too. So just so much credit to this Utah team, this culture, to Jason Beck, as we already said, one of the best offensive performances from a play calling standpoint we've seen in a very long time. I don't know about y'all. I'm bummed this is the last game. I love talking about this team. I love covering them. As we said, asterisk, could not be the last game. We're really hoping, praying, doing everything we can to try to get this team into Arlington next week. It's just a tall task because of the tiebreakers needed. So we'll keep you up to date on all of those on next week's show too. And also, this is a Utah team that probably not playing in a college football playoff game, but they are clearly, Utah was one of the 15 best teams in the country this year, especially when fully healthy. Like, yeah, the John Henry Daly injuries hurt this defense now, but this group was special. This team was special. It's hard to win 10 games in college football. Look across the country. Look how many few have done it. This Utah team, even if they had a shaky performance against Kansas offensively, defense got the ball moved on them. They made key plays in big spots, big moments, and the Utah Utes are officially 10-2. They took care of business to try to get themselves to Arlington. Now, we'll see if they can get help from everyone else. A reminder of what we need. We need BYU to beat UCF. That should happen. Arizona State versus Arizona. That'll be a very good game, even though Arizona State's home. Wildcats have turned things around this year. And then the biggest of all, go Mountaineers. Mountaineer Paul, please find a way. We need the West Virginia Mountaineers to beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders. It's going to take a lot, but we'll see if it can happen. But either way, I'm just fired up. This Utah team is 10-2. Big plays made on both sides of the ball. Key players stepping up, and the Utah Utes get a win on Black Friday against Kansas. That's going to do it for this Locked On Utes, and we'll be back with you next week, getting you prepped and ready for a potential Big 12 title game, or getting you ready for all the chaos that always unfolds during the transfer portal window. Keep it at Locked On Utes for more Utah football and Utah athletics updates and information. Utes are 10-2. Have a great rest of your long weekend, everyone.